Hello, everybody. Let's jump right into the dev diary, shall we? Would help if I brought the dev diary up on my own screen, but, you know, baby steps. It's not like I've been doing this for years or anything. Alright, Mechanics of China. Welcome to the third dev diary in our upcoming major expansion, All Under Heaven. My name is Dan Brokov, aka Joror, a programmer on the CK3 team and also the future steward of China. Future steward for China. What does that title mean? I was just about to ask. Well, it roughly means I'm responsible for design and coordination in this area, making sure that our initial vision gets translated into intriguing, immersive, and fun gameplay. This dev diary is about the gameplay mechanics for China. We will be trying to get into as many details as we can about what we've developed so far. Because yes, the DLC is still very much being developed and being iterated on right now. I got a few words out of order, sue me. And we want to hear your thoughts on what we have so far. Since China is the biggest focus of this expansion, many others are working on it as well. Some will chime in throughout the dev diary. Hold on to your hats, this is going to be a chunky one. Oh boy. We might repeat some of the things revealed in the previous dev diaries, 172 and 173, for clarity or cohesion. If anything seems contradictory, please ask away and we'll attempt to clarify. Okay, let's see if I can spot them, I guess. China, the central state. One key understanding of Imperial China in the medieval era is that it's a sophisticated bureaucracy, organized and centralized in ways seen nowhere else in the world at the time. Paper map centered on songs showing English map names. Exact map coloring, drawings, naming, borders, and translations are still a work in progress. Showing Chinese map names, same caveats. I don't read Chinese, so we'll just keep going. It has many layers ranging from the lowly district head to county magistrates, prefects, and provincial governors. Yet those are but the arms of the bureaucracy. In the imperial capital, we have the heart of power, the central ministers, the grand chancellor, and finally the emperor. We want you, the player, to be able to rise up within this power structure, or perhaps even harder, challenge it from the inside or outside. As usual, those are really the three options when dealing with a massive hegemony in Crusader Kings. The government type for China is the Celestial Government. Celestial here is in reference to the mandate of heaven, the right to rule held by the Emperor, who is also known as the Son of Heaven. This is pretty art. I like this. I don't have anything to say about it, I just like it. Excuse me. Unique to this government type is the way that titles under the Emperor, whose title is hereditary, are managed and distributed. Similarly to the existing administrative government type, these titles are given to the candidate who holds the highest score whenever such a title is vacated. In contrast to Byzantium, the scoring calculation in celestial governments is highly dictated by the merit rank you hold. Your government accreditation level, if you will. You can spend... Cute. Governmental accreditation level. You can spend influence, but you will not be able to obtain a higher position unless you have reached a sufficient rank. Haven't got the hang of the current admin government, so I'm expecting chaotic experience for this, right? We are recording for YouTube. Say hi to YouTube. I lost my place. Having reached a sufficient rank out of 9 ranks of merit will mean having access to and being expected to fill positions of a certain tier. With prefectures, counties, provinces, duchies, and circuits, kingdoms, requiring higher and higher ranks. The duchy level does not usually exist this way in medieval China, but we'll add it here for gameplay reasons. As you have seen in the previous dev diaries, the Chinese map has de jure empires, but these will generally not exist in a stable era. Instead, the highest point in any career is the position of minister, an empire tier type of position that is covered in the following section. What? Chinese map also has de jure empires, but these will not exist in a stable era. I understand that. Instead, the highest point in career is the position of minister, an empire tier type of position. Weird. I'm not sure I understand what they're getting at, but covered in the following section, let's put a pin in that. Since China is so large, the Son of Heaven relies on his bureaucracy to fill vacant positions. While he can directly intervene if the situation requires, positions will generally be directly filled upon being vacated through this rank system instead of titles reverting to the Empire, like they would in Byzantium. Right. Imperial Ministries. Note, this feature is still in very active development, so is more likely to be changed, scaled up, or perhaps scaled down. If a ruler regards his ministers as his hands and feet, then his ministers will regard him as their heart and mind. From the book of Mencius from Li Lu II. Part of the 4 books which were the foundation of the imperial examination system during the Song dynasty. The central government of a hegemony tier celestial government is an impressive feat of bureaucracy, and where some say the true power of the Chinese Empire was found. Throughout Chinese medieval history, there were many departments and ministries that made up this central bureaucracy, and were opening up their leaders as titles and positions that players can vie for as the crown achievement of power in their civilian career. Only those with a very high merit rank will even be allowed to put their name forward. Guess you can occupy a minister position managing an empire-sized chunk, but you don't own it as such. I guess, yeah, that's what I'm confused about, but then it's like, if you're managing an empire tier realm, why not use the de jure empires as administrative districts? I'm just confused about that. These department heads and ministers will replace the regular council of the emperor, and they will work similarly but also differently to counselors. First off, ministers are not appointed by the empire directly when vacated. Replace the regular council of the empire. Okay, this is the part I'm missing. They're not appointed directly by the empire when vacated. Instead, they are filled by the same mechanics that select governors for administrative titles in the empire. You can lobby to make yourself the next minister of revenue, but there might be many other powerful political entities competing for these titles. So it's less about occupying an empire's worth of land and more about the fact that as a minister you hold an empire's level of prestige and status. The balance of power and the exact titles that existed for these vary during our time period. Generally speaking, the 3 departments and 6 ministries system existed from the Sui dynasty to the Yuan dynasty, and that is what we have taken as the main structure for the ministers. Additionally, we have selected 2 other powerful titles to be present, the Grand Chancellor and the Imperial Censor. Mechanically, these positions will have landless titles of the Empire rank, to signify their power under only the Emperor himself. The terminology here is going to be confusing no matter what they do, because the Emperor holds hegemony rank, not imperial rank. Right? Like, we're kind of... I understand why the hegemony rank has to exist mechanically, but the fact that we already have empires and emperors in CK3 makes the Emperor of China confusing. Terminologically. The wheels of bureaucracy. These positions will act as go-betweens between the governors and the emperor. Representing the delegated power of the administration, the emperor will often interact more directly with his ministers than specific governors, of which he has many. Many interactions that normally would target your liege will instead target a minister in Imperial China. They act as go-betweens between the empire governors and the emperor, representing the delegated power of the administration. The emperor will interact more directly with his ministers than specific okay, that's interesting. One way for these ministers and the Grand Chancellor Imperial Censor to influence the state is through great projects, which are collaborative projects that characters can start and others can contribute to. More of this in a later dev diary. They keep hinting at this. For example, the Minister of Works could start an infrastructure project targeting multiple circuits, or the Minister of War could start a great project to start preparing for a big military campaign. Ministers will of course get funds, treasury, and a salary to be effective administrators, which they can use to pursue projects or agendas. Grand Chancellor. Very initial work in progress view of the Grand Chancellor and the Council view. Okay. Looks like the Chancellor to me. I don't know what this is yet. Otherwise, looks like the interface for the Chancellor. Also called the Prime Minister, or Zhaizheng. The Grand Chancellor is one of the most powerful political positions in Imperial China. They were the head of the entire civil administration and effectively served as the Emperor's chief executive officer, resulting in them being seen as the highest-ranking official below the Emperor. This title gives many powers, and in some situations is an equivalent level to the Emperor. The title is also at the top of the Diarch Regency list, stepping in when the Emperor is unavailable. Okay. Imperial Censor. Again, very in progress, but looks like the Spy Master to me. Leading an oversight institution called the Censorate, this role has a responsibility to investigate corruption, abuse of power, and nepotism. They also offer advice to the Emperor, and uniquely, they could challenge ministers. The Grand Chancellor, challenge ministers, the Grand Chancellor, or even the Emperor himself. This role is very similar to the Spy Master, but lifted up even more in power by the ability to publicly challenge anyone in the bureaucracy in both matters of illegal behavior, but also moral behavior. It's a powerful role to hold. Incredibly. The ministers, these roles are less powerful than the Grand Chancellor, but more powerful than any other official in the administration of Imperial China. Minister of Personnel, who oversees civil service appointments, evaluations, promotions, and dismissals. The Minister of Revenue handles census data, taxation, land distribution, and state finances. Minister of Rights manages state ceremonies, rituals, foreign relations, and the Imperial Examination System. Minister of War directs military appointments, strategy, logistics, and defense. Justice administers laws, judicial reviews, prisons, punishment. Minister of Works oversees public works, public worlds. Is that a typo? Construction, engineering, and infrastructure. Think of a few countries that could use the Censorate. Yeah. Oh, and then these are the ministries here. 6 of them? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, yeah. They look pretty equivalent at a glance to what's already existing. I mean, again, very work in progress. Yes, they're not very skilled, we know. Not all weights are in place yet. Oh. They're not very skilled. Yeah, their skills, their traits suck. Yeah, The Emperor is not without power towards his ministers and top officials, of course. He can even bestow the status of favored minister on any of them, granting them more treasury to work with or other benefits. Okay. Province and circuit types. Similar to the administrative system used in Byzantium and introduced in Roads to Power, the Celestial Government has province types, designations that you can give titles, such as the kingdom-sized circuits, that specialize it for a specific purpose. In contrast to the Byzantine system, the number of each of these that you can have is often limited by the circuit type itself, the dynastic cycle era, or specific laws. Complicated. Oh, very complicated. We have created two primary categories of circuit types. Okay, more complicated. Civilian and military. These correspond to the two career paths you can choose within the machinery of the Chinese state. Okay? The main difference between these two categories is that the civilian types will not have any men-at-arms, while the military types will have title-bound men-at-arms. When civilian or military governors need military assistance, for example from peasant uprisings or worse, they can call in military governors as allies in wars, usually requested via the Minister of War. Different circuit types will look different on your government CV, your merit. Governing these titles will grant more or less merit depending on the tax base size or size of armies. We're still heavily tweaking the advantages and disadvantages of each of these circuit types. These values are not final and definitely will be tweaked. Okay. Civilian. Most common type within the empire and designates an area that is governed primarily by civilian rule. It does not usually have access to personal men-at-arms or title-bound men-at-arms. Standard, let's call it standard taxes, lowered levies, gains this amount of merit. These are all work-in-progress numbers, so I'm not going to stress over them. Vassal benefits uses celestial appointment succession. Okay. Industrial. An area of industry. Focus on production and long-term development. You can only have a limited amount of them active. Does not provide title men-at-arms. More treasury, more merit per tax paid to liege. Building construction time and cost is down and development growth is up. Limited to 8. Metropolitan advancement era, exclusive to the advancement era. A circuit type which is focused on efficient administration of urban areas and urban development. It does not provide any title men-at-arms. It can only be assigned when the dynastic cycle is in the advancement era and is limited in number. Merit per tax paid to liege, dynasty taxes, development growth, control growth. Increase governor efficiency based on diplomacy. Interesting. Military administration. Focuses on raising and maintaining title men-at-arms and military defensiveness. Development growth is hampered, and you can only have a limited amount of them. They would usually be set on border circuits. Levies are up. Monthly treasury is up. Monthly merit per title men-at-arms. Per title men-at-arms base recruitment cost. That seems like a typo. Men-at-arms maintenance is down, defender advantage is up, fort level is up, development growth is down, and control growth is up. Okay. Use the celestial commander succession, so different succession law. Protectorate administration in the expansion era. This circuit is focused on creating a more independent military entity that could sustain and operate by itself. It can even independently expand its own realm on orders of the Emperor. It is only available if the dynastic cycle is in the expansion era and is also limited in number. Usually reserved for areas further away from the Chinese core lands. No levies. Interesting. Monthly treasury up, monthly merit, per title men-at-arms base recruitment cost. I don't know what this means. Men-at-arms maintenance down, size of title men-at-arms regiments, max title men-at-arms regiments, more regiments, bigger. Men-at-arms do more damage, levy reinforcement rate goes up, development growth goes down even further. Unlocks the summon to war interaction, allowing the liege to request the vassal to declare war for a foreign duchy tier title. The liege requests the vassal to declare war. That's an interesting mechanic. So the merit is like the influence from the admin government? Yes. What I understand from previous dev diaries is that merit is like influence, however, it's based on different factors, essentially. And influence will still exist, but won't be used for securing titles. It'll just be used for scheming against your rivals. Which is so confusing, honestly, and maybe influence isn't necessary. I'm not sure about that still. How do you prove that you would make a good Confucian ruler? Well, just like in the modern era, you have to take your exams. Exams are the ways to get started on your career within Imperial China, and other realms have copied the system from them. Gotcha. I think I'm a little confused about it too. Hopefully it'll become more clear as more of these dev diaries are released. You get to choose your career path, civilian or military. This choice determines what type of positions in the Empire you will be considered for. The civilian path usually starts by obtaining a civilian governmentship at a low title tier, and goes all the way up to the Grand Chancellor, the right-hand man of the Emperor. The military path will see you set off to defend the borders of the Empire, first in military governorships, and later perhaps coming to the capital as the Minister of War. The military path is also one where you will be commanded by the Emperor to wage wars or campaigns on their behalf. If I'm understanding this correctly, this is something I really wanted to see from Byzantium as well. That I didn't, and I was disappointed that I didn't. We have taken the traditional Chinese 9-rank system for merit, which results in a reverse of the usual numbering, going from rank 9 starting to rank 1 best rank. Oh, that's okay. Historically, in Imperial China, there was a candidacy grade, which was used for exams, and the service grade, which was used when in office. We've combined the two for simplicity. This system needs the simplicity, I have to be honest. Rank 3, subject gold salary income increases, subject treasury salary expense, developer art, candidate score, and movement power go up. Only non-governors can attend examinations. The merit rank of a highly successful governor with placeholder icons to show which examination types have been successfully completed. Right, new voice, examinations. I'm Axel, or Pink Axolotl, and I'm one of the designers working on these examinations. As previously mentioned, merit is key to securing government office. A character's merit score indicates how appropriate they are to as an official in meritorious East Asian administrative government types. That's a word, meritorious. Am I saying that right? Hold on. Is this a word? This is a real word. They're not making up words, are they?
Meritorious.
I said it right and it's a real word. Sorry for doubting you, Paradox. Meritorious East Asian administrative government types. It represents their documented achievements and moral conduct according to Confucian ideals. An official with a high merit level has a higher candidate score and, if employed, a higher salary. Characters who are not yet employed as governors can attempt to increase their merit by attending examinations. The rank of merit also directly corresponds to how high a position a character can hold. Oh, screenshot of the Imperial Examination activity. So there is a scoreboard of your grades. You're engaged in preparation. Okay. The examinations can be taken from the age of 6 via the children's examination. You can set your children up for success by having them take the test, which increases their likelihood of attending higher level examinations. Next is the provincial level, another local examination represented in-game as a multi-layered decision. Successfully passing this test allows you to be considered for county level appointments. More ambitious characters might set their sights on the prestigious higher level examinations. The Imperial Examination is an in-game open activity hosted in the capital. It starts with the Metropolitan Examination, from which the top 10 entrants will move on to the exclusive Palace Examination, hosted by the Emperor himself. Oh no, exam anxiety, right? This is stressful. Apart from being generally gifted, being a good student of Confucius is important to secure a good score at the examinations. In order to prepare, the obtaining and leveling of the Confucian scholar trait can be achieved via studying at a university in China, or by finding a Confucian elder. More about elders and disciples later in the diary. Okay. Lastly, there are other ways to succeed if you are not very gifted, or do not trust the time that you spent studying the Confucian classics will be enough. There were examinees that were known to try to bend the rules, if not outright cheat, by, for example, getting to know their examiners in advance. Interesting. When playing inside of China, you will hold a family estate. To be built up over generations as a place to call your home. In some ways, this is similar to your family estate in the administrative government from Roads to Power. This is where you can invest in permanent things that will keep benefiting your family in future generations. Unlike the governorship lands, which you will only improve on behalf of the Emperor. Unlike in Byzantium, there will also be different focus for what kind of benefits you may want. As an example, while you cannot guarantee a high merit score for your children, you can ensure that in your estate they are well educated, tracked through the Confucian education trait, as they grow up so that they may do well in their exams. Market, stables, manor, garden, okay. Another difference from the old domicile for administrative realms is that the things you can add to your family estate in a celestial realm will depend on what titles and offices you currently hold. Some things you will only be able to build if you achieve certain things in your career, such as reaching the position of minister in the central government. Like many other things in the diary, the estate itself is still under development, and if you have suggestions for things you think we should cover, then please let us know. Imperial Treasury and Salaries. In Imperial China, governors do not own the territory they rule over. They govern on behalf of the central government, and by extension, the emperor. The tax you levy is not yours, they are the empire's. You are not supposed to spend all that on building out your estate or have too many fancy feasts. That would be corruption, and quite illegal. In this organized state, taxes are instead sent to the central government, which sends back resources earmarked for government use, a budget. Governors would receive salaries, which they could spend as they please. To represent this flow of money, we have implemented a new gold flow that is used by the celestial government, the Imperial Treasury System. It uses a new resource called Treasury. Treasury is liquid assets that may be used for government purposes in contrast with your personal gold. As a vassal, you will receive treasury from your liege based on your tax contributions and other obligations. Treasury is created by the top liege, who converts a percentage of taxation income into treasury. You can transfer gold to the treasury at will. Ooh. Treasury belongs to your primary title and stays with the title if it gets a new holder. Okay. As a vassal in the Empire, all taxes you collect from your sub-vassals and domain are sent upward to your liege, and they will send it upward similarly until it reaches the emperor. To contrast, feudal vassals send only a relative percentage up to their liege and keep the rest. Oh no, flowcharts. The emperor will convert a large percentage of his vassal income into treasury, a new resource that represents liquid assets that are supposed to be spent only on governmental tasks and investments. Whatever the emperor does not convert is added to the emperor's own coffers of gold. Treasury is 1-to-1 with gold if they ever are converted. Then the emperor sends treasury downward to all their governors based on the taxes collected by each governor, plus any adjustments specific for the title they govern. These vassals send down treasury to their sub-vassals, etc. This could mean you might receive more treasury from the central government than the taxes you were able to collect. For example, military governors in a protectorate border circuit out in the barren desert might receive more since they're paying for a sizable army. At some point during the development of this system, we created a flowchart, which I leaked for a bit for the dev diary. People like flowcharts. Oh man, I hate flowcharts. Okay. Feel free to pause on this and look this over. I go just blank-eyed when I read flowcharts sometimes. So I think I understand this from the description, but I'm gonna leave this up. Take a look. If you need to go to the dev diary and look at this. If you want to pause the video, if you're watching on YouTube, feel free to do so. We're gonna keep going because we are like halfway done, and it's been 40 minutes, I think. Well, not of recording. It doesn't matter how long it's been of recording. 30 minutes. What can you spend treasury on, then? All official government business. In the Celestial Government, this translates to all holding buildings, provincial men-at-arms regiment cost, levy upkeep, most great project contributions, a few activities, and any salaries you have to pay to your sub-vassals. Hey, Archangel. Conversely, all the things that belong to you privately are paid for with gold. Estate buildings, quite a few activities, personal men-at-arms regiments, schemes, and a lot of court positions. At any given moment, you can also put your own gold into the treasury of your primary title, but you cannot take it out again as gold. You can pay things out of your own pocket, but you can't take a withdrawal from the state treasury. Makes sense. Additionally, treasury belongs to the primary title of the receiver, so if you were to lose that title, that treasury would move away with it. So building up personal wealth is harder in a centralized system. You have your estate, your salary, and any other shenanigans to get gold. Of course, there is also outright corruption, schemes and the like, and some shady decisions, whether you or another governor of the empire does so. Whenever you or another empire another governor does so, the dynastic cycle slides more towards corruption. We have rebalanced gold costs for various existing systems to better reflect that circuit governors aren't usually as rich as kings, even though they are the same title tier. Oh, okay. Sure. The Emperor has a new legitimacy type called the Mandate of Heaven. Yes! I'm actually so hyped for this. Which has some additional triggers and expectations. It's not always easy to receive the approval of the heavens. Should this legitimacy be lower than expected, then the Mandate of Heaven is in doubt and change is in the air. So you can lose the Mandate of Heaven. Fantastic. As stated in our Vision dev diary, the dynastic cycle represents the ongoing cyclical nature of dynasties and power within imperial China. Dynastic cycle, the hegemony of Song. In the advancement era, which is stable, current era can lead to era X, Y, and Z. Very helpful. Hey, Viper. In development version of the dynastic cycle window, showing the currently active era and era type. The dynastic cycle is the tool we use to represent various different periods and ambitions of China in our game. The key periods we want to represent are the Tang Dynasty, an expansionist China, with more powerful independent military governors. The Five Dynasties and Ten Kingdoms period, a divided China where many states tried to claim the Mandate of Heaven and reunite China. The Song Dynasty, an inward-looking China where merit, innovation, prosperity, and scholarship were held in high regard. The Yuan Dynasty, a China that was conquered by an outside force, which then tried to adapt and adopt the imperial system. And the early Ming Dynasty, a stronger defensive China where the emperor held more power over the government, with a revival of exams and cultural writings. Since we can create an alternate history from the moment we unpause the game, we want these different dynasties and their policies and politics to be able to organically form and evolve. To do this, we have created a new situation, a type of persistent, geographically bound system called the dynastic cycle, which can be one of several possible eras that can represent both the cyclical nature and different types of China that existed. Additionally, this situation gives China a mechanism that encourages it to be united again more easily under the Mandate of Heaven. Because if we add a force that encourages a cyclical fall, it needs a counter component for a cyclical rise. Yes. Historical note. The dynastic cycle was a concept that was formalized during the period that CK3 represents, and its cyclical nature was discussed in depth. For example, Zhu Li, a scholar during the Northern Song dynasty, argued that the dynastic decline was not inevitable, and that the loss of moral virtue and ethical discipline could be prevented if there is a structured society led by scholars who are guided by principle and moral clarity. Of course. What can each era change? Each era affects those within China in various significant ways. Aside from the usual modifiers on characters and countries, our aim is also to give each era things that are unlocked by them which are distinct and useful. These things can be additional laws and policies that can be enacted, new province types, new interactions towards others in China, great projects that can change society, warfare, or infrastructure significantly, and new CBs. They can also take away some things to reflect a different nature of the realm, such as restricting types of CB, or limiting or forbidding personal men-at-arms. For example, in the expansion era, the Grand Expansionist Command Army Command Structure Law option is available, which enables larger title men-at-arms armies at the cost of a heavy burden on the vassals of China. Not all effects are shown in the screenshot, also not all mechanics are final and have not yet been balanced. More men-at-arms, vassals are pissed, governors can keep no personal men-at-arms, and significantly more title men-at-arms. And the cost for liege to call upon provincial armies is much cheaper. Okay. Eras and their effects. Each era is sorted into one of three following categories or types. Stable. Each of these represent a prosperous age. The Empire is stable and the Mandate of Heaven is strongly held. These eras enable extra specialized laws, activity options, and represent to a certain extent the stated ambition of the government and Emperor. If the Emperor does not fulfill the ambition set forward by the stable era, they will suffer catalysts that will drive the era to an unstable one. Stable eras generally can transition only into unstable eras, not into another stable era directly. This is interesting. Gameplay-wise, if you want to play as the Emperor of China, this is a very interesting situation. This is a very interesting mechanic. Because if you want to pivot your government, you're going to have to go through a period of instability. Whenever the Mandate of Heaven is not strongly held and the Empire is not operating at its peak, the dynastic cycle is considered to be in an unstable era type. These eras signify that the cycle is turning downward, but it can still be turned around with a lot of effort. If you are an ambitious service of the Empire and you think you can fulfill the Mandate of Heaven better than the current Emperor, now might be the time to consider your options. Whereas in the chaotic era type, the Mandate of Heaven is completely lost. The Empire is shattered and the dynastic cycle is rotated to an era full of uncertainty, wanton violence, regional independence, and potential. The Advancement Era, Stable Era Type. Okay, in this era, the Empire is focusing on improving itself by looking inward through innovations, cultural excellence, prosperity of the people, and good meritocracy Confucian governance. Offensive wars are limited, preferring instead to establish tributaries and other relationships. Great projects can be completed faster, with the focus of the Empire being directed inward. Imperial exams can focus on producing the best governors that the Empire has ever seen. Historically, the Northern Song period from 960 to 1127 would be in this era, and this is what China has at the 1066 start date. We also consider the Southern Song period, 1127 to 1279, to be in this era, even though they suffered a great loss of territory to the north. It is teetering on the edge of an unstable era. As such, this is also the era active in our later start date, 1178. Note that these effects are not final. We're still tweaking here, especially with the limitations of wars. Hegemon's legitimacy expectations are raised by 1 after 50 and 100 years after the stability situation phase started. So the longer that the stability phase goes on, the more you're expected to maintain your Mandate of Heaven. Hegemon is unable to declare offensive wars outside the Land Under Heaven region. Grand Chancellor's Integrate Title Counselor task progress goes up. Metropolitan Administration is unlocked. Imperial Examination activity can be hosted. Reduced Great Projects construction time. Men-at-arms are more expensive. Life expectancy goes up. More men-at-arms, less men-at-arms regiments. Cultural fascination is faster. Buildings are faster and cheaper. Okay, expansion era. In this era, the Empire is focusing on growing stronger through looking outward, pacifying frontiers, expanding its reach through military force, tributaries, and the Silk Road. The Empire has more tools in its belt to expand. more casus belli, more armies. The imperial exams can focus on generating military strategists, and a specialized protectorate administrative circuit is unlocked. On the flip side, there are more downsides to this era. Vassals that are not administrative might war among themselves. It is harder to integrate lands into an ever-expanding empire. Rebellions and unrest are more likely. Historically, the early and high Tang period, 618 through 715-6, could be considered in this area. The early Ming period could also perhaps be considered in this area until it turned more isolationist. Note that these effects are not final. We are tweaking here, especially around the type of wars. Oh. Missed a notification on my phone about a fire nearby. That's fun. These effects are not final. Imperial Expansion CB, non-administrative vassals may openly declare war against other non-administrative vassals, maybe. Conquered duchies and kingdoms grant the hegemon more legitimacy. Hegemon may offer tributary at twice the distance. Court position salaries go up. May appoint to low merit counselors and court positions without progressing towards instability. Protectorate administration is unlocked. Imperial examination activity can be hosted with the military strategist activity type. Grand Chancellor's integrate title counselor task is disabled. Life expectancy goes up, and more men-at-arms regiments. Instability era, the unstable era type. That's okay. A little uncreative, but I guess it doesn't have to be creative. The mandate of heaven is seen as wavering, either through corruption, popular unrest, foreign invasions, the emperor acting against their own stated ambitions, non-meritorious behavior, or all of the above. This is the general era that China can be in when things are uncertain. The bureaucratic apparatus is stuttering, bringing in less taxes, corruption is easier to commit and more common. Populist and peasant factions are more likely to express their discontent through violence. Distant parts of the empire might drift away or even declare independence. Historically, the late Song era, 756 through 907, could be considered in this era, pushed into it by the massive An Lushan rebellion. This means that our early start date, 867, is in the instability era. Note that these effects are not final. We're also considering a separate reform unstable era to represent an era willing extended into to reform from one stable era to another. Or might keep that concept included within this era. I think someone had a stroke while writing this sentence. But I think I know what they're trying to say, so we'll go with that. They're considering another unstable era type. The Grand Chancellor's integrate title counselor task is disabled. Calamities occur more frequently. Populist and peasant factions are more likely to be created and have more members. Non-administrative vassals can seize hegemonic county and seize hegemonic duchy CBs. Non-admin vassals are more likely to declare internal wars. Governor efficiency was reduced by 5% for each of the hegemon's legitimacy level below 5. Non-de jure vassals and tributaries are more likely to declare or demand independence. Reduce vassal penalties for declaring war or demanding independence. Less treasury, less taxes. Life expectancy is still up. Vassal opinion down. Legitimacy gain and loss. More loss, but also more gain. Interesting. Conquest era. The mandate of heaven has been taken by a force that is not inherently China. This era is significantly triggered when the hegemony of China title falls into the hands of someone who does not have the celestial government or a cultural heritage that is not Chinese. Their government type will become celestial when the title is taken regardless. This era presents a time when the cultural cohesion of China is shaken, and with it the mandate of heaven. This foreign emperor can try to adopt and earn the mandate of heaven and steer China into another stable era, or they can fall into a chaotic era where multiple forces strive for dominance. A conquest dynasty like this is also able to exert an aggressive outward expansion, since that is what most likely got them there in the first place. Additionally, they can try and make their culture dominant by preferring those of their own culture to hold governorships. Historically, the Yuan dynasty, 1271 through 1294, which started when the Mongols under Kublai Khan conquered the majority of southern Song, would be of this era type. These effects are not final. We're likely to add more rebellions and uprising, and some other minuses similar to instability. Hegemon may use imperial expansion. Conquered duchies and kingdoms grant the hegemon more legitimacy. Grand chancellors integrate title. Counselor task is disabled. Hegemon may use the promote cultural governor's decision to favor governors of their own culture. Men-at-arms are cheaper, life expectancy is still up, mercenaries are cheaper, vassals hate you, more men-at-arms regiments, less taxes, more legitimacy gain, but also more legitimacy loss. The Chaos Era. The empire long united must divide. When this era starts, the hegemony of China title is destroyed, and all direct vassals of the empire become independent. Those ambitious enough to declare their own intent to claim the mandate of heaven and adopt dynastic name for their realm. The celestial government is continued to be valid for these realms, but no true emperor exists. The bureaucracy continues, but decentralized and less strong. Alliances are quickly drawn up between those sympathetic to one another or merely out of necessity. Historically, the 5 dynasties and 10 kingdoms period would be in this era. If you start in the early start date of 867, when the Tang is in instability, you are very likely to end up here as well if this is your cup of tea. Creates legitimacy from great projects, gains legitimacy by appointing characters with high merit. Interesting. Not a lot of effects, honestly. What is divided can be reunited, however, through new casus belli that allow for wars to be plentiful, all in the name of the people and the mandate of heaven. Consolidate land under the heaven. If one ruler achieves 75% of the de jure hegemony of China title, they can claim the mandate of heaven via a decision and start a new imperial dynasty. They will be able to select their imperial dynasty name if they have not done so already, and select one of the 5 whooshing elements for their dynasty, coloring China on the map in one of 5 possible colors. A new stable era of their choosing is started, and the dynastic cycle turns once more. Okay, catalyst of era change. We have talked about all the different eras now, but haven't really told you how they would flow into each other and how you could influence this, correct? Similar to struggles from our other DLCs, the dynastic cycle uses catalysts, I had assumed. Triggered events with specific point values to push eras from one to another. The dynastic cycle usually turns relatively slowly, and eras might last 100 years if you balance things right. The general flow of era change is stable to unstable to chaotic to stable, etc. There are some exceptions, of course. Unstable eras can lead back into stable eras if the tide is turned, but this, generally speaking, is not easy. Some eras might trigger from circumstances. Conquest eras specifically are usually triggered when a large war or the claim or the title of China is lost. Large war for the title of China is lost. Weirdly difficult sentence. Catalysts come into play primarily in the stable and unstable eras, And here are some examples from the advancement era towards the instability era. Some catalysts are immediate triggers for new eras because of their weight. The hegemon loses the mandate of heaven, their legitimacy is at rank 0. A new house inherits the hegemony title. One-off catalysts are things that you can cause yourself. The hegemon loses a war. The imperial capital is raided or besieged. An imperial house member is murdered. A governor embezzles from the central government. Others are more symptoms of corruption and or incompetence. If the imperial treasury is empty, the hegemon appoints a low-merit counselor or minister, or failing to hold imperial exams. Yet others are political in nature. An opposing movement is strong. Yearly drift. The expansion movement has the most movement power. Opposing movement. We haven't really talked about... They've mentioned movements in a previous dev diary, but we really haven't talked about them at all. So I don't know how this works. Our intent with these catalysts is to give players more tools to directly start or stop catalysts from happening, so that even though the eras might change slowly inevitably, you can always help things along or delay them significantly. Note that these catalysts are very much under development and we're likely to remove, add, rebalance many of them. Catalyst towards instability. The hegemon loses the mandate of heaven. A new house inherits the hegemony of song. The imperial capital is raided or besieged. The hegemon is below the expected legitimacy level every year. The hegemon loses a war. The hegemon fails to address a calamity. Yearly drift. The expansion movement has the most movement power. Or the hegemon appoints a low-merit counselor. Hi, I'm Arcadius, or DPS Archie, and I'm one of the designers working on the dynastic cycle in China. One of the new mechanics I've been responsible is for the political movements in China. Here we go. As I was asking about it. Unlike in Byzantium, Chinese governors can share values that transcend their personal goals. Using the situation participant group feature, we've created 4 distinct political movements in the dynastic cycle situation. Pro-dynasty, support the emperor in everything. Expansion, they want to change the cycle to the expansion era. Advancement, they want to change the cycle to the advancement era. Or conservative, they seek to resist reform, install a moral hierarchical order, and empower scholar official elites. There's also an unaligned group that doesn't have any unique mechanics and doesn't represent any values, but its members are susceptible by being persuaded to join other movements. I feel like there's a joke here that I'm going to resist making. No unique mechanics and doesn't represent any values. Make your own joke here or in the comments. I don't care. In history, during the Song Dynasty, the notable reformer Wang Anshi would be the leader of the advancement movement, and Sima Guang, leader of the conservative movement. They would debate policy before the emperor, eventually leading to the implementation of Wang Anshi's new policies. These two movements would clash for over 40 years in ethical factionalism, with ruthless purges of each other. This is a very interesting overlay. I wonder what these symbols mean. So the conservative movement, this is the movement leader. They have various amounts. These are probably the next 3 most powerful. They have various amounts of points within the movement. I'm not entirely sure what any of these symbols mean. They have values to them, though, in colors. Interesting. They seem a little like factions, but more benign. Yeah! Like a combination of factions and, what are they called? And, like, vassal types? Like you would have your zealot vassals and your belligerent vassals, your courtly vassals. Seems similar to that. Each movement is affected by the dynastic cycle eras in different ways, through character modifiers and unique unlocks. Movements will support their members by using friendly interactions and schemes between each other, and hostile against other movements, and have access to unique interactions, decisions, etc., or unique options inside them. Some of these will trigger a catalyst that will move the dynastic cycle in a certain direction. When in stability, catalysts will push towards instability. While in instability, they can either push to chaos or back to stability. Governor Hong Kui of Runan. To promote movement power or slander movement power, ask him to join my movement, to request mentorship, siphon treasury through a scheme, send treasury, slander, promote, ask to influence candidacy, or request a retirement. Each movement has a leader. A movement leader has access to the Emperor and can issue a unique petition via decision to further their movement goals or help fellow members. In order to become a leader, you have to prove yourself in front of the other members and defeat the current leader in political debate. We have to fight each other in the marketplace of ideas. Hilarious. As a leader, you can engage in another type of debate in front of the Emperor and win imperial favor, leading to your movement becoming empowered and granting it more powers to grow the movement and change the dynastic cycle eras. Make movements petition. Zhao Shu is very likely to accept this petition. Ask the hegemon to increase or decrease the central bureaucracy, spend influence, and travel to Kaifeng. Change the celestial bureaucracy law, change army command structure, province administration, or hold the imperial examination. The movement's clout is expressed in movement power value, which is a collection of personal movement powers of all its members. There are various ways to increase the power, some permanent by gaining merit, governor trait experience, and age, while others are temporary, political schemes, military strength, or disciples. Age, merit, rank, level of influence, current military strength, governor, power of disciples. Power of disciples seems to be weighted the most in this case. Movement power represents the political clout of a group. It's the sum of movement power of all the characters in the group, and the power is derived from merit rank, level of influence, age, movement power of disciples, current military strength, Confucian education trait experience, or governor trait experience. Okay. We've also added a new type of relation, elder and disciple. To further highlight the social connections and hierarchy, the relation is tied to merit. A disciple needs to have less merit than the elder, otherwise the relation cannot be established or ends amicably. Two main ways of acquiring disciples is to convince them to join your movement or mentor them directly through a new political scheme. Disciples also lend their movement power to the elder. Okay. Makes sense. Request mentorship. To improve merit, study Confucianism or study battle tactics. Cool, I love this mechanic. This seems really fun. In the Chaos era, movements disband, but their relation prevails. The convictions you made will help you keep the power base and quickly reestablish the mandate of heaven in your favor. Movements will contest each other, and a wise emperor would make sure there is balance between them, lest they create a movement with so much power it could operate the empire without him. And more to come. We try to limit our dev diary size somewhat. Hilarious. And not info dump too much all at once, so we'll keep it here for now. But I will post a little teaser for more China-related mechanics that we can handle in the near future. Hegemonic tributaries. Tributaries that are formed when outside rulers acknowledge the hegemony and in turn receive recognition, economic benefits, and more. Great projects have still not been touched on. We did not mention the Great Wall or the Grand Canal or other obviously Chinese great projects, but rest assured we will get there. And border warfare. We are experimenting with allowing realms to wage war on sub-vassals of big realms in certain circumstances, without immediately drawing in the top liege. This gives larger empires like the Chinese Emperor more local military delegation and a new type of threat. Huh. So, if the empire is distracted or decentralized or under certain circumstances that they're not clear on yet, I don't know, say a leader in Diviet could maybe sneak in and grab a couple counties while the emperor's not looking. That's really interesting. Because this did happen historically, right? Like, there were wars where a few acres or, like a border raid that was really against the local rulers and didn't get involved, didn't get the top liege involved, all over history and all over the world. So this could be really interesting, but there's a balance issue potentially, and my playlist ran out. Let me restart it. That's super exciting. Please let us know what you think of all these features. Many are still very much work in progress, as we've seen, and the more we hear from you, the better we can adjust them. Now is the time to complain to Paradox. If there's something in this you hate, tell them. If there's something in this you're worried about, tell them. I know I'm a Paradox apologist, and I know they're not perfect. But during this dev diary cycle, especially lately, these are the opportunities we have to make the game what we want. And if we don't express those wants, it's not going to happen. Our next dev diary will be about Japan, its tributaries, and various mechanics. See you next time. Thank you. I wish you happiness. All looks pretty neat. I do like starting small as a vassal within a region, and this seems to provide a lot of interactions and ways to maneuver within a bigger empire. I'm really excited to specifically play as a petty not petty diplomat, a petty bureaucrat in 867 in the Tong. Watch them collapse and form my own petty kingdom from the ashes, and just kind of see what happens from there. That's gonna be really fun and really exciting. Real quickly, y'all, let's chat more about this dev diary. However, if you're watching on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe, follow, all that stuff I'm supposed to say, whatever. Do it. I'm going to end the recording here. I will see you all next week, and I'm going to go talk shit about you with the cool folks at Twitch chat. Bye!